Hi, welcome back to Energy Works. My name is Blaine. I co-host this podcast with Lauren Walker, but this is a solo episode that I am doing on food energetics, which is a new aspect of five element theory that I have been studying, and I'm really just starting to teach about using really this podcast right now as the beginning of me speaking out loud about it. I've studied five element theory probably for 7 or 8 years. And when I say five element theory, you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about. It is five element theory from Chinese medicine. And Lauren Walker and I did 5 episodes, really 6 episodes, I guess. We did an episode about what is five element theory, and then 5 episodes, one on water, one on wood, one on fire, one on earth, and one on metal. Those are the five elements. And so it's a deep dive into the way that Lauren and I have studied five elements, which has not been food. And so I recently in the last year, dove into studying about food energetics. And you can think about food as medicine is what I'm talking about here. And when we're working with the five elements, all of us have all five elements. Nature has all five elements. Planet Earth has all five elements. All of us are all five elements, but we have a primary element, a secondary element. There are 3 element archetypes, but all of us are all of them. And when our elements start to get out of balance, then it manifests in the body as disease, because disease is always when we get out of homeostasis or out of balance, then disease will show up because of that. And so we're always seeking to bring ourselves back into balance. That's a core tenet of energy medicine and most holistic health practices. But the study of food and using the property of food and food as medicine to help us come back into balance is something new to me. And so I have taken a couple of smaller courses. I'm in the middle of a big course right now, a big ambitious course. And so I don't have everything memorized like I do with the aspects of five element theory that I've studied for years and years. So I literally have like my handwritten notes here that I'm going to be looking at as I talk to you. And as a teacher, it really helps me learn to teach, because like research and prepare and all of that really helps it kind of get into my cells as I also communicate it out. And so thank you for listening as I am learning this and being patient with me. But I love it so much. I did a week ago was the first episode I released on food, and we talked about the thermal nature of food, warming versus cooling. Today we're going to talk about the 5 flavors. And we'll also get into yin and yang a little bit, the high level yin and yang theory. Again, we want to be in balance, but yang is very up and out energy. It's hot, it's summer, it's active. Yin is very downward and inward energy. It's night, it's cooling, it is dark. The yang energy is more light. Yang is sun, moon, and earth are considered yin. And so the food that we eat, these flavors that I'm going to talk to you about, are you can think of them as the properties of food. The first book that ever talked about food as medicine was called The Inner Canon of the Yellow Emperor. And it was written over 2,000 years ago. And that's the first document we, the humans, know of where the text was written about food as medicine. And when we start to see these properties and flavors of food And the property of the food, when we eat it, it does something in the body. Maybe it's constricting, maybe it's expanding, maybe it's creating moisture, maybe it's eliminating moisture, maybe it's making us warm, maybe it's making us cool. And our organs are affected in different ways by these properties of the food. So what I'm going to talk about today, and these are short episodes, the me solo episodes talking about food. What I'm going to talk about today is, it's called the 5 flavors of food. Each element has a flavor, and the way that the property of the food affects our body. And the flavor's not just the taste of the food. It's, again, like, the taste is like what do you register on your tongue. It's what are all the properties of the food behind that make the food have an effect on the body. And some of them, right? If you eat a really spicy food, your body's going to warm up and maybe mucus starts coming out and your nose starts running. And so some of these we know. We can use these flavors to elicit different healing bodily responses, or we can call them balancing bodily responses as we eat. And I'll challenge you to, we talk about these flavors, bitter and sour and pungent, that as you're eating your meals, to really tune in and see what aspect of what you're eating might be sweet or might be sour or might be bitter or might be pungent, or aromatic is another way of pungent, or spicy is also in pungent. And see if their taste buds can really tune in to some of these, each little aspect of what you're eating, what it brings to the flavor table. And we know how energy works. Just when you start paying attention to it, there's a magnified response just because you're noticing. And I've loved studying food energetics and buying different types of groceries and cooking in a different way. And when I eat, tuning into what I'm eating in a different way. It's been such a fun and deeper way of looking at the 5 elements than I've done and knew, because I've studied elements for a long time. People spend their entire lifetimes studying 5-element theory. People spend their entire lifetimes just on food energetics. And so it's incredibly deep. But we'll dive in. So water, wood, fire, earth, metal are 5 elements. And I want to say that before we even jump in, now I'm just going to slow us down just a moment to talk about earth, the earth element. So in the ancient Chinese medicine, the very, very, very old one, in the model, earth was in the middle, and then the other 4 elements were around it. And over the millennia, there have been different people in power, different politics, different, China has a long history. And so the model shifted a little bit, where earth came out into the circle. So kind of nothing was in the middle, and it was just a big circle: water, wood, fire, earth, metal. And water, winter; wood, spring; fire, summer; earth, the transition times, solstices and equinox; and metal, autumn. And the way that food energetics is looked at, earth is back in the middle. And so it's the older model. And, some people have never moved away from that model. The way that I first learned about 5-element theory from Donna Eden's school, Eden Energy Medicine, earth is in the circle. As I'm studying food energetics, earth is in the middle. And there is always earth, and there's a lot of foods that are earth. And I'll talk about this when we get to earth, but earth is always happening in this model. Earth is always happening. It is more predominant in the solstices and the equinoxes, but also times of transition. Solstice and equinox are transition time, but they're not just, 7 days on either side of that particular, astrological event. If in where you live, if spring doesn't turn to summer until May, and you're still in transition in May, that's a strong earth time. If it's winter one day and summer the next day and snowing one day and raining and hailing and 60 degrees the next day, and you haven't really, you're in this transition for a long time, you are in a stronger earth time. And then again, there's always earth no matter what. So it's been fun and interesting for me to look at earth in that way. But we're going to start with water. And so water is winter. And from a food therapy, so we're talking about like Chinese medicine, food therapy perspective, it's yin, which it also is yin and other, but I'm just going to like keep emphasizing and sometimes it's not going to be exactly the same as we look at it from the other perspectives. It's yin, and the energy is moving downwards, and it's very kidney focused. It's bladder and kidney are the two organs of the water element. And it's this very like downward towards the kidney for filtering and elimination of fluids. The flavor is salty. So salty is water. And when we think of salty in the West, we think of like mined salt, right? Table salt, or like chips with salt, or French fries with salt, or something like that. In Chinese dietary therapy, it's not this added salt that we're talking about. Yes, the condiment of salt, what's in your shaker, is obviously salty, and too much salt is not a good thing. Condiments are, supposed to be very sparingly used. We're talking about salt, like the nature of the food itself, without adding anything else to it, is salty. So the natural state of the food is salty. So sea vegetables, your seaweeds and dulse and all the different sea vegetables that we eat are salty and are great for kidney support. And I want to say as an aside, I recently, a few weeks ago, was on this vegan cruise that I go on every year. It's kind of like a plant-based conference, but on a cruise ship that it's a week long, and there are doctors and scholars and researchers and everything of the plant-based diet. And we sit in lectures and listen to these people, and they have books, and there's book signings, and I love it. I go every year. I've been plant-based for decades. And so a big emphasis this year was sea vegetables, how Americans don't eat that many sea vegetables, how sea vegetables are so nourishing, especially in the area of longevity. And this really ties exactly with what they teach in Chinese dietary therapy, because as we age, we really want to support our kidney and our kidney energy. And salty is the flavor, and the sea vegetables are very supportive of this. And so having sea vegetables in your diet, I do have sea vegetables in my diet. There's a group of friends who went on the vegan cruise with me, and afterwards we were talking about, what's the thing you learned that you're going to change, or what stuck with you the most? And a girlfriend of mine said, sea vegetables. I need to eat more sea vegetables. And she and I went to the same potluck about 4 days ago. And her thing she brought to the potluck was this huge seaweed salad. She's like, I'm serious. I'm really getting more sea vegetables into my diet. So salty, supportive of kidney. Seafood, barley, millet, soy sauce, tamari, and then, of course, the table salt, like from the mines, is salty. These are just a few. I don't want to give you too many. So the salty moves the fluids in the body through the kidneys. But of course, if you have too much, then you start retaining water. So this is always about balance and moderation. We don't want to only eat sea vegetables or salty things. This is just one thing. So too much salt, not good for the kidneys, but we want to have a good amount of salty food in the diet, especially if we're focusing on kidney support or trying to balance our water for some reason. So water is salty. Wood is next. Wood is sour. The organs that are part of wood are liver and gallbladder. And so with sour, the energy goes inward. You can think about biting into a lemon, or if you've ever seen a kid bite into a lemon. My mother used to have this story about me as a little toddler, and I would constantly be trying to grab the lemon out of her lemon water because it was yellow and pretty, and she was always stopping me. And finally one day she was just like, do it, And so I grabbed the lemon and I shoved it in my mouth, and I just made this terrible face and started crying. My mother would, occasionally tell that story after I was an adult. And so that's this flavor that we're talking about. It's cooling and it's astringent. It's like a solvent in our body. Sour food usually has a lot of antioxidants. And so it's very, very cleaning and purifying and helps our entire system. It's great to fight inflammation. So blackberries, cranberries, green apples, lemons, limes, plain yogurt, adzuki beans, vinegar, sauerkraut, sourdough, all the fermented dishes are in this sour element. And so the energy, it's going inward, like that pucker you get when I know some of you are listening and not watching on YouTube, but I'm like sucking my cheeks in and like a pucker, like I'm drying up because of this sour astringent flavor. It stimulates our digestive juices, and even though like this inward puckering sourness actually does activate fluids to bathe our tissues, and it guides our chi to go inward to protect against excess sweating. It's why lemonade and lemon water feel so refreshing and cooling to us. So that is wood. So I'm just going to kind of keep repeating. So water is salty, wood is sour. We're going to move to fire. And the food for fire, or the flavor, is bitter flavor. And this is a downward energy. And, it's kind of fun when we think about this, because typically when the non-food way, when we're talking about fire, fires is about as up and out as you can get. But if we have a lot of fire in our system, we don't want to pile a bunch of up and out energy on top of up and out energy, right? So we balance it with bitter. So it's this downward energy to balance, because fire is such a strong up and out. So we use the food to bring balance to our system. There's a saying in Chinese medicine that says good medicine is bitter. And you can even think about digestive bitters that maybe some people still do drink before a meal, like a very small amount of digestive bitters to help with digestion. The bitters eliminates inflammation, and it dries dampness and phlegm. A little goes a long way. That's what's really important that you think about. A little goes a long way with bitter. In the West, a lot of people don't like bitter foods. And so maybe that'll make you happy. You don't have to eat too much, but it's powerful medicine. It's packed with nutrients. And the types of foods we're talking about are turnip, rhubarb, artichoke, dandelion greens, mustard greens, asparagus, coffee, green and black tea. So when you think about coffee, even, in the bitter flavor, a lot of people like coffee. Like, you don't want too much coffee. This is the principle of yin and yang. If you have too much of a good thing ever, then it's going to do the opposite of what you want. Too much salty food, you're going to start retaining fluid. Too much bitter food, you're going to start to have digestive distress and maybe like some heart palpitations, because we're working with fire where the heart is. Heart and pericardium, which is the lining of the heart, are the organs that we're working with fire. So water, salty, wood, sour, fire, bitter. And next we get to earth. And again, earth, there's a lot of the foods that we eat are already earth. We are supported by the earth. In this model, earth is in the middle. Earth is all the time. There's no special season except for the solstices and the equinox, which are the transition times. And so spleen and stomach, which is where our digestion is, which it makes sense, right? Like, we are digesting, and so the earth foods are all of the time because spleen and stomach is governing our digestion. It makes sense that we always have earth all the time to me. Earth is sweet, and we love sweet in the West, but similar to salt, we're talking about foods that just have a sweet property. We're not talking about refined sugar. We're not talking about adding refined sugar. Just the way the food is already sweet. So because Earth is so expansive, we have so many Earth foods in what we eat. There's three kinds of sweet. There's full sweet, bland sweet, and empty sweet. So full sweet foods nourish and warms, and so you can think of meat and nuts as full sweet food. Bland sweet foods are grains and beans. They're not too warm or too cold. Even in Earth, we have, the yin foods and the yang foods, the warming foods and the cooling foods. Earth foods can incorporate all of those things. Empty sweet is fruit. Fruit isn't bad for you. It's a cooling fruit. It's a cooling food. It's a hydrating food. There's a lot of benefits to fruit, but it's considered in the sweet, it's considered an empty sweet. And then all of your refined sugar and your treats and all that is considered empty sweet. Half your daily diet should come from sweet foods to nourish the spleen. And the natural sugar in the food starts the breakdown process to help us digest. So apples, bananas, dates, figs, beets, cabbage, peas, sweet potato, carrot, almonds, tofu. There's loads of sweet foods. You think about all the root vegetables that come out of the earth that are naturally sweet. There's loads of naturally sweet foods that really, if you just taste them without any extra seasoning or anything like that, and you have a palate that is not I'll say, corrupted by overly sweet foods, then you can really taste it. I went on a sugar cleanse. It's been a few years ago. And so I didn't eat any sugar, any external sugar for, I can't remember how long, maybe like 30 days. And I'll never forget the first piece of fruit I ate after that cleanse was over. And I was like, this is the sweetest thing I'd ever tasted. But when I've been eating sugar all the time, refined sugar, like the sweet taste of food didn't register so much because my palate had been so corrupted by the processed foods. And so the more that you don't have the processed foods and you're eating foods as close to their whole form as possible, the more you really taste this inherent sweetness in the foods. So Earth is sweet. I'm just going to say it again. We're adult learners probably listening to this, and adult learners really benefit from repetition. Water, salty, wood, sour, fire, bitter, earth, sweet, and metal is the final one, and that's pungent. And pungent encompasses spicy and aromatic. So pungent, spicy, aromatic. And in some books, it'll be called aromatic and not pungent. But most often it's called pungent. Metal is the autumn season. It is lung and large intestine. And the pungent is a yang energy. So it's a uplifting energy in metal with pungent food. It opens your pores and it breaks up stagnation. So you can think when you sit down with a chai latte and take a sip of a warm chai latte, the aromatic and pungentness of that, or the satisfaction of a bite of curry. Like these are pungent, aromatic, spicy foods. And they make you feel really satiated when you have them. And maybe, like pleasantly full, like satiated and pleasantly full, and like your senses have kind of had a treat, as well as the normal happy feelings you get when you eat a healthy meal that makes you feel good. And that removes dampness. So green onions, leeks, onions, ginger, garlic, lots of the herbs and spices are in this category. So when you open up your spice cabinet, the stuff in the jars, lots of that is in this category. Radishes, chives, shallots, and broccoli. And I'm just giving you a few examples of all of these foods. There are There are many more than this. And I'm also really talking about food here. There is the Chinese herbs, and there are Chinese herbalists. And I mean, that's really a whole separate thing than the food energetics I'm talking about. Although all of these aspects like warming and cooling and the flavors and all that sort of thing apply, but man, there's so many herbs and there are so many medicinal qualities that go on with the herbs in five element theory. So I'm talking mostly about food. And then we just talked about some spices here too. And so one thing to think about as I close this off today is when I'm recording this, it's spring. It's April, I think today's April 2nd. And so it's seasonal allergy time. And so you might be thinking, okay, if I have seasonal allergies, what can I do? And it's the pungent foods like I just talked about. Not the heating spices, but the vegetables. So not the heating spices like pepper and chili and garlic and cinnamon, not those, but the pungent vegetables like radish and chives and arugula and ginger, the ginger, like the actual root. That plus the earth sweet foods like peas, cabbage, and carrots. And so those are the foods, pungent and earth vegetables, that you can start to add to your diet to combat inflammation and to, the mucusiness and the runny nose and all that sort of thing to bring more balance into your body as you are trying to overcome seasonal allergies that might be plaguing you. Okay, so that is all I'm going to share for today, the 5 flavors. And I'd love to know what you think. If you like this series, if you want me to keep talking about the different aspects of food, there's so many of them. I could probably do quite a few of these solo episodes. If you're interested, I love talking about it so much. So let me know in the comments what you think, and I will see you next time.